and welcome to this Health Rhythms webinar. Check this out. I can facilitate a virtual drum circle using rumbles. So if everybody rumble, and watch me for the volume. Pretty fun. What is next in this world? So welcome everybody. I'm going to mute you all so that we can talk to you about our topic tonight. And I've invited everybody to take a minute and write in the chat bar. Oh, it's lovely to see so many of you. I love it. You know, there's two different modes. You can pop into the gallery mode, in which case you can see a number of us all together, which is really fun. And I know a number of people are going to be watching the rerun of this. I know. Hi, Leslie. So I'm really excited to introduce this topic tonight, today, whatever hour you're on. And our topic is looking at creating themes that helps to coordinate your protocol. We'll do a quick protocol review and discuss the themes specifically as Rufus is going to share with us his work in Toronto area with cancer patient survivors and their caregivers. Summer Lal is going to come on from Los Angeles and share with us a little bit of how she has been incorporating heart math into her work with at-risk and juvenile populations. I don't know if you say delinquent populations, but you can teach us that, at-risk adolescents, and also how she's been examining resilience. And then we'll close with a little practice of self-care through guided imagery drumming. How does that sound? That sound like what you signed up for, everybody? So let me start by, and I'll introduce each speaker as they come on, but I have a slideshow to walk us through today, this program. This first slide is the 9 themes that I've created for the Health Rhythms Monthly Mentoring, which we're promoting. It starts June 10th. This is my 4th year teaching it. It's so wonderful because we do it online. You can be in your own home, and I cover these topics. They're the most common topics I find people want to learn more about, with the bonus gift of the webinar on doing guided imagery drumming and the guided imagery audio track, and some other free gifts for you. So please consider joining us. I know some of you on this call maybe have done that program with me, but it's really nice because it's very focused on health rhythms, these key things in health rhythms. Okay, how do I move off? So let's begin with what is the protocol. Just a reminder that it's 10 steps. However, our first experiments with it was 8 steps. We didn't have the wellness, I'm sorry, actually it was 7. We didn't have inspirational beats. We didn't have the wellness exercises when we first began. They were added after the first study on the immune system. But, you know, when you look at this list, it sort of feels daunting, right? It's like, okay, I've got an hour to get in 10 steps. So one key that we talk a lot about in Health Rhythms is this arc, that we're leading up to this number 6 entrainment building, and then we kind of going back inward, calming. It carries itself a wave. Very therapeutic design. One wave. There's therapeutic designs with 2 waves. This one is a 1-wave therapeutic design. We build the energy to the entrainment building, and then we go a little more introspective and calming for the ending. So those are the steps. Now, the reason the themes are so critically helpful is when you put a theme upon this, and you're all going to get a free session plan of a theme that I've used with individuals in recovery and addiction. And so each step of this I can design an especially inspirational beats, which is just a reminder where I ask a question and you answer on your drum. Such a powerful step in the protocol. A disclosure step, because we know from science, from Penny Baker's research, how important it is. And so often people don't have words for what they're experiencing. So allowing that immediate answer through the sound and the hands and the physiology, the somatic response is a very powerful step. So looking at these steps now, thinking about, okay, so how would I teach rhythmic naming if I was working with a recovery group? How about drumming the name of your sponsor? The inspirational beats question I love to ask is, what do you want sobriety to sound like for you in your life? You could do a guided imagery drumming that goes into one of the 12 steps or goes into a journey into your perfect health without alcohol or drugs. So does this make sense? Or now we have a lot of addiction to internet, sex addiction, and gambling addiction. There's a lot of new breath to that topic, certainly. Okay, so before we go to the next, and you're going to all get a copy of this, so don't worry. I'll send it out to everybody, or Alyssa will. So I am excited now to introduce our next speaker. He hails from Toronto, and I'll just ask you, Rufus, to say a little bit about yourself, because he's bilingual, Spanish and English, probably French, for crying out loud. You're in Canada. And he studied also the council method and brings a lot of his work with Indigenous populations and peacemaking, and has been a friend of mine since the first time I taught in Toronto at Hockley Valley. I still remember when I first met you. And so I'll turn it over to you, and when you're ready, you can tell me to put up the slides.
Thank you, Christine. It's an honor to be here. I have learned so much from you and from Health Rhythms, but really from doing this work. And it's given me a lot of courage to work with different populations and challenge myself, because it's such a powerful and effective protocol. And it's helped me to work with people with Alzheimer's and dementia, youth with mental illness, people with addiction, people who are recovering from trauma. And this work is really adaptive to so many different populations. And as we know, wellness is a huge concern, especially in schools and in the workplace. So today I'm focusing primarily on my wellness work, even though I love working in schools. In fact, that's a lot of my bread and butter. But I'm now focusing more on stress reduction in the schools. So this is a really lovely bit of not just great knowledge, but the research, I've always loved to say, opens a lot of hearts, minds, doors, and eventually wallets to allow drummers and other specialists like us into corporations and schools and many places that have never had this sort of thing. So it's it's really exciting to be a pioneer in this work. And Health Rhythms really got me started. And Christine's mentoring also gave me the courage and the confidence, just by being with a bunch of other people who do this work, to reinforce my belief in myself and my ability to do this work. So I recommend that as well. So before we get into the slides, I just thought I would talk about a few considerations that I think are important when working with this population.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to interrupt you for a quick second. Can you tell everybody your name and your company, the name of your company?
Yes, of course. My name is Rufus Glasgow. My company is called Rhythm Kingdom, although that name is about to change, and it's going to be, I'm changing it to something that's going to incorporate some of the new work that I'm doing, which is sound healing and also shamanic coaching. So, and a lot of outdoor work using rhythm and sound and nature.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was it. Now go right ahead, launch into what you're going to teach.
Thank you. So this is really rewarding work, working with people with cancer. It's the most rewarding work that I do. It doesn't always pay very well. So this is why we charge the corporations and the NGOs a little bit more. And you can justify that. You can say, well, I work with people with cancer. That's why I'm charging you guys more. You can afford it. And everyone knows someone who's had cancer. So it's hard to anyway, I've always had the connection mentioning that I work with people with cancer, because everyone knows someone who's experienced that challenge in their life. So because of, first of all, I just wanted to say there's lots of opportunities to do this work, and I would highly recommend working with cancer, people with cancer and their caregivers, especially their family members who are also very stressed out, in places where they specialize on working with complementary alternative therapies and supporting primarily people with cancer. And they have these, unfortunately, these centers all over North America and the world now. A common one in the States is called Gilda's, I think it's called Gilda's Club or Gilda's Center. It's named after Gilda Radner, the famous actress. And I've worked for Gildas here in Canada, but we also have another lovely network of organizations called Wellspring. And I'm going to recommend also you check out the resource in this book, which I think we're going to give you a link to tonight.
Yes.
Which has some information at the back on Wellspring, including a really important resource on cancer, which is a free ebook called The Healing Journey. So if you want to learn more about cancer, and even providing that resource to people you may know with cancer, it's an amazing book and the most popular course that they run. Finally, before we get into the themes, I just wanted to mention that people with cancer have a huge amount of stress. They have a huge amount of need for emotional release. They also have a huge amount of anger, and we'll talk about that really quickly in one of the themes. And they're also in need of sharing stuff with people who can understand. And it's really hard for them sometimes to share that with people that they know, diagnoses especially. People will be coming fresh off of medical appointments with some either amazing news or terrifying news, and it's always important to acknowledge that. And I always do that by sending a rumble and some loving energy to that person whenever they share things like that. And to never just ignore when that stuff comes out, because another source of anger in this world is so many people abandon people with cancer and don't know what to say or do, and they just treat them like they're contagious and disappear from their lives. So you certainly don't want to be one of those people to ever disregard anything that you hear. Some people do need to divulge a lot to let stuff out. It's really important to manage that and to take time if you can at the end, or to have the supports from the center to make sure there are people working with you to also provide support, because a lot of stuff can come out, but it's some of the most rewarding work that I do. Finally, it's important to have what I call Vegas rules. What happens in the circle stays in the circle, because people will divulge things, including things about their health status, that always need to stay confidential, of course, but people need to trust this space to feel that safety to do that. Yeah, so there is a lot of emotional release. People will also be finally going through some medical treatments that can include chemotherapy, and chemotherapy can lead to what is called chemo brain, or just brain fog. So it's really important not to do anything too complicated, ask people to follow rhythm patterns that are too complicated. In Health Rhythms, we don't really do that. I like to teach basic rhythms, but also reinforce things, and people will also miss classes because of appointments. So it's really important to let them know that if you miss a class or two, come on back. If you're not feeling it one day, we'll still be here. Each class is self-contained to be a unit in its own. You won't be left behind if you miss a class or two. So I think that's it for the preamble. We'll jump into the slides. And I just wanted to say, we're talking today about the themes that I've come up with for working. I'm not seeing the slides for some reason.
I'll put it up.
Okay.
I will put it up.
I'm not sure if that's me or...
It's me. Here you go.
Small screen.
Here you go.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say the questions that come for the inspirational beats are tied to the themes, but the themes really came from pooling all the questions that I came up with. And the questions all came from a questionnaire that I handed out to my first group. And I asked them, what are some of the challenges you've had to deal with while on this journey through cancer? And what were some of the joys or important supports that you've encountered along the way? And so those gave me, I took the common answers, those gave me the questions to ask. And this method can be applied to working with any new population. So it's really good to do a poll of those challenges and joys of the people you're about to work with, to help you come up with your own unique questions for any group. And then those questions can be grouped into themes. So the first one is kind of obvious. We can move forward now. You've had a chance to read these. And overcoming your fears is really what they've done by showing up that day. So I talk about how sometimes cancer can be a kick in the butt and can kind of push us to try new things, to let things go, to heal what's not working in our lives, to fix what's not fixed, whatever we can do. So I always try to honor them for being there, for trying new things, taking these creative risks. And the first question is for inspirational beats. Before we get into that, we always start safe by exploring emotions. I talk about how sound waves can transfer emotion, and we hear that when people give a speech and they're very sad or they're very nervous, we can feel that in their voice. Most people have had that experience. And then we're going to experience that now on the drums. Can anyone think of something that has made them angry recently and express what that feeling might sound like on the drum? And that's always where I start. It's always the most accessible emotion for almost everyone. And then we get a lot of release. And then we talk about what made it sound angry. And then we move on to sad sound. And then we end off with a happy sound. And then we always quickly discuss, and we ask permission. Would it be okay if we asked people what it was about that sound that sounded happy or sad? And people always give the permission, but it's very important to ask. And then what I was going to say is once we've gone through that, then I ask this specific question. And this is a question I've had to go back to because it's amazing how much anger people have when having to navigate the healthcare system that they've been paying into all their life through their health insurance or their taxes here in Canada. And suddenly they're being ignored, they're missing diagnoses, they're not getting calls back from specialists and wasting time in the system waiting for operations, especially here in Canada. But so there's a lot of anger. And once someone has experienced that release of anger, other people want to get involved. So it's good to leave a little extra time the first day for this one. Now, Wellspring is the cancer support center that I refer to. We always start with a challenging question. We always end on a positive note. So Wellspring is an amazing place to come, and people who've come to this drum class have usually experienced another class or two, or just happy to find a place where everyone there has cancer or is the relative of someone who has, and no one has to pay for a single course in this place either. So it's a really nice place people feel grateful for. You can turn that around into any kind of question, but end it on a positive note. We're gonna, I think, should we, I think we're gonna leave a time for questions until the very end.
Yes, we can do the questions at the end, but this is so great. You know what? I just learned so much. I loved your preamble before asking the questions. You warm up the inspirational beats process with some practice emotions. That's brilliant. I mean, that's a takeaway that everyone can use no matter what population you're working with. So thank you for that.
Well, I think you're the one who taught it to me, so thank you.
Okay, let's take a look at the other.
It's really interesting just to start without questions, just with, what do you think that sadness might sound like? And people play something always soft and always kind of scratchy or rubby on the drums, or like rain tapping. People, that sounds like tears, and people are like, yeah, oh, I can hear the tears. And always have Kleenex, by the way, in these rooms when you do this work, because you're going to need it. And always honor the tears that you get and thank people for sharing their emotions, because they give permission for all of us to do the same. People will always apologize when they cry, and I always like, no, thank you. Anyway, living in the moment. Just want to say, stress gets us into trouble health-wise, right? And try being stressed and then getting cancer and then trying to get over your stress so you can heal yourself. So that's why Health Rhythms is so important. Just before we mention this, I'll quickly share the best one-word compliment I ever received was at the end of a Health Rhythms class at Wellspring. It was the one-word share. People say things like, I feel relaxed, I feel grateful, I feel oneness. This woman said, I feel distracted. She came up to me at the end and she said, I need to explain to you why I said distracted. Ever since I got diagnosed a few weeks ago, I have not been able to stop thinking about cancer for 1 second. For the last hour and a half, I didn't think about it once. And I knew that we had done our job. I didn't really say this before, but we don't really talk about cancer. We talk about how do we manage life's challenges, and we give people the opportunities to share. And I'll mention that now. So living in the moment. This is something that the theme we use for things like rhythmic naming. What's something that you do that puts you in the moment? What do you love to do? Something like that. Or helps us with an activity, a wellness activity that puts us in the present moment. Or,
nice.
Yeah, I usually do body percussion, something that requires your attention. That's magic of rhythm. If you're facilitating something, people have to pay attention, and they're not thinking about the future or the past, which is the source of most stress. So being overwhelmed when people have to now focus on wellness, sometimes have to deal with paying bills and they don't have their job right now because they're ill. They have to still do everything, look after the kids, pick up the groceries, do the cooking, and find time for wellness. It's really hard. That's a pretty important question to ask, I think. Now, the most important thing in this environment is to turn people who are suffering from a common illness that can be very scary and life-threatening, and who are always tempted to ask the question, why me, into experts in cancer, which they become thanks to Google, and also thanks to going through it, like everything we learn from doing. And they become experts in survival, they become experts in coping and letting stuff go and forgiveness, at least those who are invested in helping themselves to heal. And many are these days, thanks to all these different things we can learn about and to do for ourselves. So it's really important to ask, how do you, and once you've heard this difficult question, how does it feel? You ask, so what do we do about that? How do we cope with that? And then you allow people to share their strategies. And when they can share their strategy with someone who was a little, not as far down the road in their cancer journey, who's even more overwhelmed, that person goes from being a victim to someone with an expertise that can help another human being. And that helps to transform the whole vibration around illness. So it's really important to take advantage of the wisdom in that circle, to share those strategies, to make space for that, because that gives their lives so much more meaning, and it helps you understand stuff better and become more of an expert. Not that, God forbid, we'll ever need to know that, but chances are we will know someone with cancer. So anyway, take advantage of and make a space for that wisdom to come out. So then how do you feel when you take time for yourself? And what you're really doing is you're really giving people, also in the rhythmic naming, you're also giving people examples of all these different things we can do for self-care. Some of them don't take a lot of time. We all deserve them. So you really want to get back to, these are things we deserve and we need to do, not just for ourselves, but for our survival. And then for our loved ones who want us around. If we want to be in their lives, they can let us do this stuff and carve out time for that too.
Nice.
Okay. We're going to move on to gratitude.
Now, I just want to remind everybody, so when it says number 3, it means session number 3. Okay.
Oh, yes. Now, and I just wanted to qualify that in one way. I always do, I've been doing 6-week programs once a week, which is what the Health Rhythms protocol recommends in terms of the health benefits being more profound and longer lasting. We've also discovered in this particular session, in this particular location for this particular population, people are less hesitant to sign up for 6 weeks. So they think making it 4 weeks will make it more attractive. That being said, everyone who comes for 6 weeks always wants more. So what I'm now doing is coming up with 2 4-week programs. One is going to be more about drumming and health rhythms. One will be more about guided imagery and sound healing and relaxation and vibration, because they're both around stress reduction. And so that way I can actually get more workshops and get to practice my new passion, which is sound healing, and give people even more, because they really need stress.
Wow. So you're saying that you typically find it easier to get people enrolled in 4 sessions, and then they often want more.
Yes. So in order to get greater buy-in, to get greater numbers coming to, I mean, we're always full, but they want to have me come in more often, but do shorter series of workshops. That will have greater numbers come in. And then I've also found a way to do other things where I'm actually going to have more work in the end as opposed to less. So more can be less in some way, if you know what I mean. And if we can work with more people, even though it's fewer weeks, we can have a bigger impact, I think, ultimately, than ideal, which is 6 or 8 weeks.
Well, I think just for time's sake, I'm going to say, could I suggest that we kind of go quickly through your topics and then see if there's any questions?
Absolutely.
So take a look at gratitude and self-care. I mean, I really think the design of this is brilliant. And also, I really wanted to comment on what you said was so powerful. You're getting out of topics of the diagnosis and into the coping strategies. And can you speak about this one, the importance of play? I thought that was a surprise when I saw this.
Well, God, put up your hand if you don't do enough in your life for self-care. I'm trying to do more all the time. Most of us are busier than we've ever been, not making as much money as we'd like, and just feeling we can't justify time for self-care. Oh, that was there. Me time. Well, me time is self-care. Playtime is self-care for me. Thank you for pointing out the difference there. So play, I think, I have the joy of working with young children when it comes to drumming. That just fills me with laughter and joy like nothing else. And it's because we don't play as adults unless it's a drinking game or some competitive sport or maybe a board
Mm,
game if we know people are into that. But how often do we
mm.
play? We don't work drums. So drumming is recreational. Recreational is fun. And so drumming is a form of play. And that's why they've been playing for a few weeks now. It's week 5. And they're like, yeah, this is fun. I'm giggling all the time. I'm laughing. I'm releasing stress. How else can I play? And so I ask people, what do you do to have fun? And we do that in the rhythmic naming. And
Mm.
experience, not just how do you feel when you don't have me time? It's also when you take time for yourself and then you feel guilty. Have you ever done that? Right. So, but we have to prioritize our self-care. And I like to share this great quote by George Bernard Shaw, the famous playwright. He said, we don't stop playing because we grow old. You can help me finish the sentence. We grow old because we stop playing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So true. Okay, then we've got
Last slide.
one last slide, which I loved that this was a topic, and I'll say, just to interject for a quick second, is that when I worked in the disaster area of Hurricane Katrina, I noticed that the people that were helping others, even though they were also had lost everything to the hurricane, and this was in the St. Bernard Parish area, the ones who were helping others were the healthiest. They were coping the best. So I loved that you put this in your list. So anything you want to say about this to close us out?
Well, it's the first question could look a little strange, but I have to tell you how much rage and confusion and sadness people carry from this one issue alone. I mentioned it before, this feeling that they're contagious, that people have cut them out of their lives. Like it's like when people get divorced or a partner passes away, the same thing happens. But this is just cancer. Like if there's any one moment, well, you think in all those cases people would need extra help, but the opposite happens. And I have to admit to being guilty to having friends and family and not knowing what to say. So we talk about the importance of communicating with people and saying, I know you might not know what to say. I know you don't want to call me up and say, how's it going? And remind me I have cancer. Don't worry about that. Just call me up and say, how's it going? I was thinking about you. I love you. And I just miss you. And I want to do something with you. I want to buy you lunch or cook you a meal or, just whatever you want to do. Like you don't have to, and then you can provide people with ideas of what you could use to support you. Do you want people to make you a casserole and just put it on the porch and not even ring the bell? Let them know that and someone will do it. So it's also about taking responsibility for helping people who just don't have the skills to be anything but jerks, because there's so many people who, I'm a jerk, I've done this, and I've slowly learned, thanks to the people I've met in these workshops, how to talk about this without fear, without
Mm.
to reach out and to try. And I still don't do it enough, but God, I only hope we get better at this. So that's a big issue.
It's a sensitive topic.
And
So
then we also say who volunteers, and everyone who puts up their hand says, and so do you get more out of it than you give? And they all nod their heads. So we talk about the importance of what you receive when you give, and people who don't volunteer, who don't give, don't get that. But once
yeah,
you do get it. And so you're just planting another seed and then helping people feel better about themselves and their lives, and ideally help themselves heal.
thank you. Let's give him a Zoom applause. This is a Zoom applause, everybody. Oh, just receive that, Rufus. Really, that was really beautiful and very inspiring. Thank you for being willing to speak to these and being willing to share these 6 with everybody today. I'm really moved to have this list. This is one of the projects that we do in the Health Rhythms Monthly Mentoring. We do take a project of your homework is 1 month to write up some themes, and everybody in the class, in the group, shares their themes, and then we all walk away with this huge list of ideas, which I think having that theme, like I learned today, I loved your idea of putting that into the rhythmic naming. So wonderful suggestions. Thank you. So relax, you did good. It's weird teaching on Zoom, right? But now Summer is going to give us a little bit of, I unmuted you, I think. And then I guess we'll open it for questions after that, and I'll close it out with a little drumming. So tell us your name of your company, your name, and what you're going to be speaking on.
Hey everybody, I'm Summer Law. My company is called Rhythm and Truth, and we do music therapy and also have teaching artists there. And our specialty is working with at-risk youth. So that's what I've been doing for the past 11 or so years. Many different settings, but that's really our niche. So basically right now I'm working with youth in probation. So we don't really say delinquent so much anymore. And I always say my youth aren't really at risk. They're took a risk, because at risk means they're at risk of going to jail and they're already there. So we're working with what it's like being there, being away from their families, having to deal with, you know, forgiveness of themselves and trying to merge new relationships and their plans going forward. Are they going home? Are they going to try to have an independent living program? So there's and just dynamics within the groups. There's a lot of gang involvement. There's a lot of substance abuse, past trauma. So it's very layered. Many of them emotionally and sometimes cerebrally, like mentally, are stagnated in their growth because of the trauma or the substance abuse. And it's quite extensive. And sometimes the traumas are actually still happening. So it's not like we're just healing from the past, but some of these things are current, or they're afraid to go back to those scenarios. So although I'm working with criminals, a lot of them are also victims. And we have different dorms depending on what type of reason they got locked up for, as they say, the reason they got put in placement. But it's not a locked facility. There's trees everywhere. It's very beautiful. We try to have a more rehabilitative approach as opposed to punitive. And we're moving from like behaviorist to more child-centered and trauma-informed care, focusing on resilience. So I've been, yeah.
I'll put up your slide when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I didn't say this, but I'm a music therapist. So I'm coming at this from a music therapy perspective. And I took the Health Rhythms training. I realized it was 2 years ago in January, so about 2.5 years in Valencia with Christine. But I've been getting mentorship and wisdom from her for a long time. I'm also been doing music medicine, and that really influences what we're doing as well, based on her book. So it's a combination of many different protocols, but I definitely use a lot of health rhythms and Remo-informed protocols.
I just have to say, was so great when you were with me in Valencia 2.5 years ago, or whenever that was, and you came up to me and you go, oh my God, I just realized this is evidence-based. I can get drumming into my center by using this. And I was like, yes, you can.
Yeah, exactly. It's really important. Some of the places, they only allow evidence-based practice. So it's really good to have that. And I also realized I was kind of instinctually going through some of these things as a music therapist. Doing active music making and drumming anyway really is a natural curve, and getting, like you said, to that peak moment, and then having the bookends and the wellness. So to me, it feels really intuitive and natural, and works really, really well. So yeah, you could put up the slides now. I have a few things I want to talk about. I just don't know the order. Okay, cool. So one of the things that we love to do, I'll just teach you a little fun drumming game that, thanks to Rufus, now I know is from Dramagination, the book. So I just ordered that because now I want to read the whole thing. But I've been doing it since internship. I was taught by a fellow music therapy intern and never knew where it was from, but it's extremely effective. I love it. It's really good during the entrainment process. So if I have a group that's really not in training, usually with adolescents, it's either kind of defiance, like they really don't want to entrain, or they're refusing to play, or they're playing super loud, trying to kind of dominate the group, or maybe some distractibility or learning things. But usually it's purposeful. So this is a really, really good way to get everyone playing, even if they're saying, I don't want to participate. So typically what I'll do is I'll say, that's okay, you don't have to, because my clients are not self-selecting, they're required to be with me. So I have to find ways to help them feel really welcome, and that they still have empowerment to make choice, since actually it wasn't their choice to be there. And so I always try to keep that in mind. Sometimes in the saying no is, healing, because they had an option to say no, or in most ways you can't say no. You have to be here. You have to eat this. You have to go to bed at this time. So it's nice to have those options. So in that way, I'm like, cool, you got to say no. But what I do say is, okay, that's fine, but can you please just leave like an instrument in front of you, because we're going to be doing this thing where people are going to need to use it. You don't have to play it. So most people, everyone always says yes to that. But then when it comes time for this game, it's really, really difficult to keep resisting. So I guess I'll show it to you, and then I'll talk a little bit about how I use it and have developed it since learning it. Let me see if I can angle this so you can see the drums a little bit.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I was also going to show you, just like I usually do a hip hop rhythm, or the kids honestly come up with a hip hop rhythm. And we say kids, just a side note. I used to wonder why we were calling them kids, since they were sometimes 18 years old or, you know, teenagers. But I came to realize that many of them were robbed of their innocence and robbed of their childhood. And this is an opportunity for them to get a little bit of that back and be kids again and not have adult responsibilities and adult issues, and just be able to let go a little bit and have fun and play, like Rufus was saying. So that's just a side note. I do use kids. So basically we do a hip hop rhythm. Usually they come up with it, not me, but it's very, very consistent across all different groups that I've been with. Whether it's mostly Hispanic kids or African American or white kids, like this is like pretty consistently a hip hop beat. So it's and what I added is a space. Wait, wait, wait. Wait. And the reason I add the space is it gives an opportunity to do a lot of really fun things in that spot. So first of all, it's good for entrainment, because then there's a moment where at least everyone's not playing together, even if they're not playing ever. They're in training and that they're not playing with anyone else at that moment. So it helps with entrainment, but it also can be a spot where someone can take a solo, where you can do call response, where you can add voice, where you can just open up to kind of improv or freestyle. So it's a really nice thing to have. And once we're all in training with that space, people will sometimes just automatically fill it in and take turns. So basically they're taking over. I don't have to over facilitate anything. I can sit back and there's this space that's already been sculpted in that the group decides. And the more, with adolescents especially, the more they can take ownership of the group, the more effective it is. Because
so can you play the rhythm one more time? Because I had the slide up and people probably couldn't see you drumming.
Yes, I know the sound's probably different. So
no, it's good. Go ahead.
All right, so I'll just slow it down a little and then I'll go normal. So it's boom, boom, tap, boom, tap, boom, boom, tap. Let me see if I can put it down. Boom, boom, tap, boom, boom, tap, boom, boom, tap, boom, tap, boom, boom, tap, boom, tap, and wait, 2, 3, 4. Boom, tap.
Thank you.
Sure. Getting the right ratio here. So that's the hip hop beat. So then when you have that space, that's actually a nice time where you can do the 4, 3, 2, 1 stop without having to play, because sometimes I know it's hard for people to play and say it at the same time. So you naturally have like this 3, 2, 1, and stop. And then I start snapping or doing something to keep the beat. And then I teach it. So I say, watch me first and then you try. And I usually say that twice. Watch me first and then you try. Give a little to yourself. 1, 2, 3. Over to the left. 1, 2, 3. Over to the right. 1, 2, 3. What about community? 1. Hey, give a little to yourself. 1, 2, 3. Over to the left. 1, 2, 3. Over to the right. 1, 2, 3. What about community? Try little to yourself. And then we all try it. And I go over to the left to kind of show directions. Over to the right. 1, 2, 3. What about community? 1. Hey. And so you can repeat, what about community? 1. Hey. What about community? Hey. Use your voice out of community. Hey. 1, 2. Back to the groove. 7. So that's give a little.
Let's give her an applause. That is so awesome, really. I wanted to play along immediately. It's great.
Yes. So we used to think you had to all have drums, but I actually think it's fun. Like Rufus and I were talking about this before. Sometimes having moments where they have to figure it out is good because it's such a good moment of ice breaking, gets people laughing. Time and time again, I'll do drum circles, and if I still have some people who are a bit reserved or looking like they're focusing really hard or not breathing or not, at least not aware of the group, this breaks all of that, and people start laughing, and they're realizing like, how do I play a cowbell with no stick? Or like, he has a shaker, now I'm shaking his hand. So you just kind of adapt. So I don't think you need to all have drums. I think it's kind of fun to see what happens and allow people to kind of just get loose and figure it out. So
Great. So the other thing that was on the slide was your singing bowl dedication.
yes. So the singing bowl, so the give a little, oh, and one more thing about that is when you're doing so this would be like entrainment building, but there's a moment where we say, what about community? And then we hit it once, and then we say, hey. So that's getting everyone to use their voice without having to sing or think of anything. So it's kind of warming up using the voice too, which I think is important. And then you can use that space for a different word. So you could say like, what about friendship? Hey, what about friendship? And I usually just keep the beat and I say, okay, what else is important to you? What's important? What about family? Hey, what about music? So you can go around the circle and people can just shout out. With my kids, it's normally like shoes or food. But then you get into like, what about love? What about nature? What about God? It just depends on your group. And certainly when you say over to the left and right, you could say like survivor. If it's cancer, survivor to the left, survivor to the right, or whatever language you want to use, like brother to the left, sister to the right. So you can change all that up, but it becomes more like inspirational beats when you add that layer of like, what's meaningful and important to you, and what do you want to shout out? That's a big term for us. It's like, what do you want to give a shout out? So it like is really seamless when you go from entrainment to inspirational beats when you do that. So
beautiful.
Okay. All right. So then the bowl dedication. Drums. So this can work with like honestly any bell sound, or like from music medicine perspective, like silent sound. Or a Tibetan bowl, so it doesn't have to be a singing bowl, but I have a crystal singing bowl that's for the heart. And what I typically do, depending on the group size, I'll either pass it and allow everyone to play it, or I will play it for everybody after I ask. So this is considered like a finale. And once I started doing it, I pretty much do it in every group, no matter what the group is, just because it's been really effective. I just find it's nice for me to check in with people and also a way for them to pass it on. So it's kind of like what Rufus, you were saying about helping people. The bowl dedication at the end is like, okay, well, we gathered hopefully positive energy, or we're feeling better now, or feeling more energized, or feeling more peaceful. Who is someone you want to send that to? And even if they're not feeling better, you can say like, well, who's someone that you would like us to send some good energy to, or love to, or whatever language you want to use for where you are. But I have everybody say their weather or how they feel, and we'll talk about the weathers in a minute with heart math. And then they say who their dedication is. So it could be a dedication to a family member or a friend, or yourself. Even in recovery a lot, it's like it could be your higher power. It could be someone who's passed away. It could be a pet. So there's really no rules. It's just any shout out. But I try to encourage it to be at least someone. And then so everyone goes around and says it. And then at the end we play, or they each say it and play. So as if we said like, I'm feeling sunny and my dedication is to my mom. And sometimes I say, imagine that sound reaching the people you just mentioned. And sometimes I'll say, let's all take a breath in and release. And if it's a really squirrely group or high energy, I'll say, raise your hand when you can no longer hear the sound. So everyone's like, it just really helps everybody find that moment of silence together and tune in at the end.
So do you play the singing bowl once after everybody's said it, or each time that someone says what their weather and their dedication is?
So I either do, so for time, if I have like a big group, I'll have everyone say, and then I'll do it once at the end for all the names that were said. And if it's a smaller group, I'll pass it. So everyone says their weather and dedication and then plays it themselves. They get the opportunity to try the bowl.
Nice.
And hold space for that. It's really good because a lot of our kids have lost people in their lives. And there's not a lot of like ritual or things in place for them to honor loved ones. I just found it, sometimes it feels like an RIP, like dedication. It's just almost like a way for them to remember the ones they miss.
Beautiful. And Giselle was asking, what's the usual size of your group?
It's really varied. So at the center I was talking about, Optimist, the groups are only 6 or less. They're very little. And we stay with them for about 3 months. They stay almost a year, so they can rotate through different groups, which I can talk about. I do 4 different groups, music and meditation, lyrics and listening, instruments and insight, which is the drumming, and then songwriting and support. So they rotate through. Now, I also have done lots of groups with bigger sizes, you know, up to huge drum circles, but typically it wouldn't be bigger than like 20. I like to keep it under that just because I'm doing therapy as well. It kind of gets difficult to do like the deeper processing. If you have too many people, they don't want to share that much or that many.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So just in terms of timing, we don't even need to put up the slides. If you want to just tell us about this weather thing that you mentioned, I'm very interested in how that weaves in with heart math.
Yes. Okay. So because I was there so long, I got to do a study over the last 3 years where we studied basically empathy and resilience with the kids. And how we did that was we used heart math protocol. So heart math is awesome. I've been a trained heart math facilitator. And basically it's evidence-based breathing practice. So I love it with the kids because there's tangible biofeedback. They can hold different devices that help them and train their breathing, and they're seeing if they're breathing in a way that's making their body in coherence. Basically, like their autonomic nervous system, their sympathetic and parasympathetic are balanced. So it's charging their inner battery as opposed to draining. So it's just like a long-term solution to managing stress and promoting wellness. So we're teaching those kids really early. So as a wellness exercise, I start every group with heart math. But what I do before we even do the practice is I use a heart math chart to see where they are at the beginning and where they are at the end. So we use inner weather. And inner weather is a chart that basically is like this. There's 4 quadrants. And it's based off of the upper quadrant, which is like cortisol, like faster heartbeat. And then the lower is going to be slower heart rate. So actually, the top is sympathetic nervous system. The bottom is parasympathetic. And then on the left side, it's going to be cortisol, which is like stress. And on the right side, it's DHEA, which is known as the vitality hormone. So that's how they make these 4 quadrants. And on the upper left quadrant, that's going to be fast heart rate, so sympathetic with cortisol, so you're draining your battery. So we call that stormy, right? Those emotions are, the kids think of it themselves, but like angry, frustrated, irritated, right? And then if you go to the lower quadrant, it's going to be still draining your battery, but slower heart rate. So parasympathetic meets cortisol, and we call that cloudy. So that would be depressed, sad, disappointed, hopeless, okay? Then you move over and you can see, oh, thank you, Christine. Nice. Beautiful. Then we move to calm. So that's going to be DHEA meets with parasympathetic, slow heart rate. So that could be peaceful, feeling of love, a feeling of hope, feeling of dignity, courage. And then if you go to the top, it's sunny. So that one is based off of DHEA, the vitality, plus more sympathetic, a faster heart rate. And that one is, you know, excited, surprised, elated. So the kids use the weathers to describe what they're feeling. So they don't have to say, sometimes they're not ready to just be like, I'm really sad. But they'll say, I'm feeling cloudy. And so that's the way I'll check in when they walk in. And then we'll do some heart math breathing practice, like heart focused breathing. And then I check check in with them when they leave. And we use that scale to see how much everybody changed just on one session basis in an hour. And the results were really amazing. Like 90% of the people were able to shift.
Wow.
Extremely significant in the
Wow.
hour. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And
so let's give her some love. Thank you for teaching us these things. And I had a sort of a spontaneous idea listening to you today. I wondered if maybe before we open it for Q&A, if we could do together, try to lead a heart math breath that you just said.
okay.
And I could drum for you. And you know, the drum that I'm crazy about is the Bahia Buffalo drum. How many of you have this drum? I know, it's amazing, right? And I have been working on the ornamentation of my drum. So these are some feathers that I picked up when I first went to South Africa, and I found flamenco feathers on the beach in Walvis Bay. And I carried them for so long, I thought, what am I going to do with these? And I went to a little workshop and learned how to put them on a hair clip, which I can now clip onto any drum. But I really think it adds something energetically to your Remo drum when you can. I just saw somebody who took a silver metallic Sharpie and drew on the head. It looks stunning. So just some tips. So if I want to play the soft heartbeat, and then if you want to guide us, Summer, I'll feature you, and then let's all learn this practice. Everybody ready to do some breathing today?
All right. So this is called heart focused breathing. So just take a moment, get comfortable, and direct your attention to your breath. Breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. If you want, you can count to 5 in and 5 out, or whatever rhythm is comfortable for you. You can match it with a drum beat if you like. Now, while you're breathing, imagine that the air is flowing in and out of your heart center.
Wow.
So you're breathing into the heart and breathing out from your heart. And sometimes it can help if you want to put your hand on your heart to get that sensation. And the second step, if we want to do one more step, is just make a sincere attempt to re-experience a positive feeling. So ones that work really well are gratitude, care for someone or something in your life, or a feeling of appreciation. So just make a genuine attempt to breathe that feeling into your heart and breathe it out from your heart.
Hmm.
You can radiate gratitude for everybody on this call today, everyone who is here, and everyone who's going to be watching later, for the great work everyone is doing.
Let's take a breath. When you're ready, open your eyes. And a little rumble. And see, virtual wellness activities. I love it. Let's give Summer a big Zoom applause again. and to Rufus for really, what a great webinar. I think that really covered what I wanted to share, which was just a self-care practice through guided imagery drumming, but I think you really did it so beautifully. We could always drum along while we did this heart math breath, right, Summer?
Yeah.
I'll also unmute you, Rufus. So does anybody have a question? We have a few minutes left. You can raise your hand, unmute yourself and ask, or if you're calling in from your phone, I think it's *6. Okay, go ahead, Leslie.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, great. So Summer, thank you. And thank you, Rufus, also. You were talking about in the beginning where you left a space. You would do your hip hop rhythm and then you left a space and then people could fill that in. So like, what would people do? What do people add, or, you know, what do you add, or, you know, what goes into that space?
Awesome. It varies, but typically if I find someone who, like you, how we're always kind of scanning the group for like magical moments or people who are really comfortable or doing something interesting or cool, sometimes I'll invite someone to kind of just keep playing in that space. They don't have to like do a solo. They can just keep doing what they're doing. So it's a way of sculpting and kind of highlighting different people, and it's exactly a bar, so they know how long it is, and they start to get the flow of that. And as that happens, people will typically naturally start to solo or do something a little different when their space comes. And like I said, the more I can step back, the better. So sometimes you can set it up where then they invite the next person.
Wow.
Who's gonna take over.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's one way. You could also just, there's a space of ooh, 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 ooh. You know, you can kind of do anything with the vocal, or you know, you could teach a little piece in the middle. Sometimes I just do like a bass, like bum, 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 and then back. So then everyone's just dum, 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 and then we all go back. So there's a lot you can do with it. You could do a movement. We've done that before, where you like do some cool dance and then you go back to your drum.
That's cool. That's very cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Great question. Okay, any other questions? I'm looking through. Somebody asked, is there going to be another Health Rhythms training in Northern California this year? I don't know the answer to that, but you can definitely refer to the Health Rhythms website where the trainings are. I've retired from teaching the basic training, so I'm really putting my energy into these mentoring programs using this platform of Zoom, where we get together with other people that have, you know, that have taken the training, and it's amazing what comes out of these mentoring groups. So it's starting June 10th. Please sign up. It's a subscription model now, so it's a monthly fee, and I believe it's $44 a month. And wow, I mean, you get great supervision. There's projects that'll inspire you, and it's everything from specifics in how to create themes to the facilitation to group dynamics. I've really compiled the secrets of everything I've learned after 20 years of leading Health Rhythms into a 9-month course. I just decided that an advanced training should be taught from your home, because the most important training is working with groups, don't you think? I mean, it's where we really start to learn. And as these guys have shown us today, how important it is to learn the techniques of heart math, or, you know, shamanic or sound healing, other things that people are integrating. For Rufus, who is he speaking to in the organizational programs? Okay, Rufus, who are you speaking to in the organizational programs? Oh, sorry, in the organization to offer the program. In other words, who do you speak to in the wellness organization to offer a program? Good question.
So I was just answering that in the chat, but long story short, each of these centers that offers complementary alternative therapies has someone scheduling all of the different therapists to come in and do that work. They're the person you need to get to speak to, and sometimes the best way to get them to buy in is just to offer to do a free demo workshop. Make sure that the decision makers will be in that group, and make sure there's some people there as well who are cancer survivors or undergoing treatment, so they can speak to the way they feel at the end of that workshop. That one word share will do more for getting you hired than anything else.
Thank you. I will share my final PowerPoint slide here. That was a great thing I learned today on the call about the heart math. That was really beneficial with the inner weather report. That's a great tool to use. So here is the website where you can go learn more about the mentoring group before it starts. There's a lot of good material there. There's a testimonial video. And I do it for 9 months for a very good reason. I feel like it's the incubating, just like giving birth. It takes people to the next level of their facilitation, to the next level of their business. You know, we all have things to overcome in this work of health rhythms. And so for 18 years, I've trained people and coached people. And I don't know, I keep finding that in the group experience, shifts happen in a stronger way because we're like a team. We form a team, and a lot of us are alone in a community doing this work. And we certainly seem to feel alone in healthcare. So I just wanted to mention that.
Can I
Yes.
add something real quick? I learned a lot. I've always learned a lot from you, Christine, but in the mentoring class, I learned a lot from the other facilitators, many of whom were already established doing this work in their communities. And they give me great ideas about which untapped populations would love to do this work, and were really responding well to what these facilitators were doing in their communities. So it gave me also new marketing ideas that really helped. Yeah, and that community makes you feel part of that community. You get more emboldened. People give you good feedback. They thank you for your ideas. So it's a really beautiful give and take community.
Thank you for that plug. So we have Drum Lady.
Yes, Christine, hello.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, golly, I love you. And you have been such an inspiration through my journey with Health Rhythms. And I wanted to share something that happened just last week at a retreat that I did. I was using my voice, going, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. And I turned and looked at the person to my right. And I went, ooh. And that sound went all the way around the circle with everyone making a different vocal. It was amazing. It was the most wonderful icebreaker I've ever done.
Thank you.
Everyone had a wonderful, phenomenal, different sound. And now I have to recreate it, I guess.
Yeah, because that's the truth. When the lemons that make lemonade happen and you find yourself, something comes through you in the moment, now you've created a signature move.
And it was,
I remember being in Japan and we couldn't somehow figure out how to do the shaker pass with the group. There was language barriers. And I called it shaker roulette. So we sent one shaker around while I rumbled. And when I stopped rumbling, the person with the shaker had to do a dance in the middle. And then come back to their seat and then send the shaker around. I had to come up with something in the moment with one shaker that would make people laugh.
yeah.
So we created shaker roulette. And now you created the pass the
There was so much laughter and so much connection that it was amazing. It was amazing. So what I would like to share with everyone who's listening is just go with your gut. Go with your heart, because it's in you. It's in you. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. One of the things we teach is the 5 keys to mastery, and the 5th key is play the edge. And it's really true. It's that trusting yourself, even when you feel like, what's happening right now? Am I exactly on the step of the protocol? And yes, I am.
Yeah.
So thank you. Is there any other comments or questions? We have a couple more minutes. You can wave if I'm not seeing your hand raised. Are you waving, Lulu, or are you asking a question? You're waving. Okay. Oh my gosh, Cornell. Okay, I got to say hi to this guy. What is up?
Hey, everything is good.
Have you guys seen his TED Talk? Cornell, how many people have seen that TED Talk? What's the view rate now?
Around 50,000.
Hello.
Well, it's small by comparison. Depends. But yeah, I enjoy doing it. I work real hard on it, and I'm glad it had at least that many viewers. And I'm working mostly with seniors and teens and a hospital.
Wonderful.
Good to see you.
Is there any tip that you want to share that we didn't cover today? And those populations are a real reflection of what we covered today, really. Teens, hospitals, cancer.
Wow, you know, I freeze up in the moment sometimes, but the part about going with your gut is really good. And using your voice for me has been really important. So I don't go with the microphone to a smaller setting, but larger settings I do, because singing and drumming just go together really well. And you don't have to be a great singer. And it's good to practice simple rhythm and talking so that you feel comfortable doing it. It becomes organic. And the things people are doing, like Rufus with the cancer survivors, is really strong stuff. And Summer with the youth that are incarcerated. And they have their different things that work with them. So I enjoy hearing and learning about that. And the thing you said about being isolated in your community, yeah, I feel that. I'm in Boston, and there are some people around, but not immediately, and I don't feel like I have close people that are doing this. So our community is, you know, right here in a big way, and it's good to stay connected, and I'm looking to reconnect with that more. Yeah. Was that any helpful?
That was perfect. And I put your link up so people can copy it and watch it. And look, somebody just wrote, I'm in Northampton. It's fairly easy to get to Boston. Let's connect. Talk about magic. That's a Health Rhythms magic moment. And I know that person. That's Ellen. Let's unmute you. Come on, say something.
Ellen. Hi. Oh, I see your picture there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in transition, so I've just gone through all the hoops. I'm teaching special ed in a high school in Springfield. But I do a weekly class I call Beat Stress. But yeah, I'm about to have my first summer off in a very long time and get building up more drumming again. So I'd be happy to connect.
Who goes to Beat Stress program?
Well, I used to do an all women's group for a long time. And over time, my path broadened just in terms of, I don't know, the urgency of where we are in terms of, you name it, what's happening in our world right now. So right now in my group, I have a pretty diverse group of people who come, and some including a woman who is nonverbal in a wheelchair who comes, and then I have my good buddy Jean, who grew up in inner city LA, who's like an uncle to my daughter, and random, just it's kind of all over the map. And it's been wonderful to have people with different life experiences coming together and building a stronger core of community in a that hopefully, you know, the conversation broadens to relevant, you know, how do we deal with what we just heard on the news today, and you know, and moving forward in a positive way rather than getting completely overwhelmed by everything. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Giselle just asked, thank you, Ellen. It's good to see you again. Giselle just made a good point. She wrote, with all the shootings, is anyone mentoring youth in their community work with their peers? Yeah, I mean, I was just, my sister lived 2 miles from the shooting in Poway at the synagogue. So interesting point is that the social worker at that school district is a woman that I trained in Health Rhythms. She came and took Health Rhythms in San Diego. So I've been in touch with her and offered to come and co-facilitate with her. I think that's going to happen for the kids that the ripple effect of the shooting has been primarily for Jewish kids in the school feeling unsafe. You know, they now have security guards at the synagogue in that town. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that it's and also Drum Lady says, sure, yes, I sure am. So yeah, it's a great call to action. And I really appreciate what you all have shared today. I'm going to kind of bring it to a close and should be sensitive to your time. But I think you can feel the resonance of even on this internet platform, it's I've been teaching on Zoom for 8 years, and it's like, even on, well, not 8 years, maybe 4 years. It's been running this program 8 years, but for 4 years, we've been using Zoom. And it really does feel like we keep learning how to do like a virtual drum circle, or how to really share and feel like we're connecting, because we're a big movement. We've trained 4,000 people in more than 27 countries now in health rhythms. And in the UK, the Ministry of Health wants to start prescribing music and the arts for people with depression in the Ministry of Health in the UK. And when that comes through, it's going to be quite a lot of need. So we're starting to see more and more push. And the other thing is to please stay in touch with us on Facebook. And I keep circulating this new study that came out in 2016, also from the UK, looking at mental health consumers using a 12-week protocol with drumming, an hour and a half of drumming. It wasn't health rhythms, but they were doing drumming for an hour and a half, and they had remarkable results. Not just emotional changes in depression and anxiety, but they had a decrease in inflammation. I know, Lulu, you and I were talking about that study, right? Anything else you want to add to that? Here, I'm trying to wrap it up, but this is an important study everybody should know about.
You know, I haven't written, I've copied it. It's a really important study because of they took saliva from the participants, and they found that, yes, this inflammation thing, it's a huge thing for arthritis, for people with any kind of inflammatory disease. So it's fantastic that this has happened.
Yeah,
this study has gone through.
I agree. It's really nice to see you here, Lulu. Your work is amazing.
I was waving my hand to say something. I just wanted to say that I have been doing many different mentoring courses with Christine over the last 8 years, I guess. And it has been such a huge help. And she's privately coached me through a lot of interesting things. And I can't recommend that course enough. It's just really worth it.
Thank you. And Lulu, you have to tell them what you do with the cancer patients, the survivors boat.
So yeah, so I worked a long time ago with cancer for about 10 years with cancer at the Cancer Lodge, and then a friend of mine had cancer, so I suggested that I come to. I ended up because of my elbow, I was going to physiotherapy at the University of British Columbia, and my physio said to me, "So what are you doing with the money?" I was on a foundation, and what are you doing with the money for the run that you make this year? And I said, "Well, we don't have a donor." And she said, "Well, we give it to us." And so, "What's that about?" And he said, "Well, we're forming a dragon boat team, and we're going to see what it does, what the dragon boat team does for the cancer survivors." And 3 of my really good friends were on that team. That was the very first dragon boat team for breast cancer survivors. So I ended up doing on their 10th anniversary, I did, it was really amazing. There were 2,000 people in this plaza in Vancouver, and they were all either cancer survivors or their families. And we did this, I got about 100 people, 100 of them behind me, and we wove our way through the people with one of those, it was sort of like a Chinese parade. It was really cool. And they all started, it was really fun. So yeah, so all those dragon boats out there that are around the world are a result of my elbow.
I love this full circle that we began with the cancer survivors and we found our way back. Usually we would end with a one-word share, but in the meantime, I think I'll just close. If I could ask the wonderful sharing from Rufus, if you can unmute yourself, and Summer, if there's anything you guys would like to share, any final wisdom, starting with you, Rufus.
I'd like to honor what Summer and Cornell both said, because they are using, well, the crystal bowl and also the voice. I think because the voice is our most important sound healing tool.
Yeah.
So I'm really enjoying how getting people to chant, getting people to sing, getting people to share and use their voices, even just toning as a wellness exercise. And then using a crystal bowl at the end, getting people to tone. Drumming connects people, but a vibration of sound really makes us feel one, like we're one and we're not alone. And I think as Mary Tolina likes to say, drumming is our superpower, or our connection is our superpower that drumming brings to people, and people need connection more now than ever before.
Oh, Summer, any closing thoughts?
Oh, this is so wonderful because I feel like I learned a lot being here, and it just makes me realize how much we have to learn from each other. And I'm really glad we got to meet as a community, even on Zoom. And I would love to do more of this because I feel inspired and I want to go try some new things out. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much. To end with toning is a great suggestion. And I just had the great opportunity to teach for a Buddhist gathering, and I learned the 3 tones for the Buddha. You want to learn them to close? They're really powerful. They come from the Tibetan sound healing tradition. I know the 5 warrior sounds, that I use that a lot with people in recovery. But what Rufus said is so powerful. You know, the drumming, Paul John Deere just told us when we were at Music Medicine, he said, when you drum, people don't always smile, but when you sing, everyone smiles. Very true. So the 3 sounds are Om for the mind of Buddha, Ah for the words of Buddha, and Om Ah Hum for the heart of Buddha. So it's Om Ah and Hum. Hum. One more time. Om is first. Om. Ah. And Hung. Hung. Okay, I'll see you at the monthly mentoring program. Everybody come and join it. We'll have a great time continuing to revive ourselves and share ideas and continue to really impact humanity with rhythm. Ashe.
Ashe.
And thanks to
you,
let's give a quick shout out. Boom, boom. Give a little to Alyssa. Let's see, I guess that would look like this, right, Summer? Give a little to Alyssa. Give a little to Alyssa. Give a little to Remo. Give a little to Remo. Give a little to Zoom. Thank you, Zoom, for making this happen.
Give a little to Christine. Boom,
Yes.
boom.
Give a little. Give a lot.
Can this work on Zoom? Give a little to your neighbor. All right. Have a great night. Thanks so much. And we'll send you so many gifts. Rufus is generous to give you a copy of his piece he wrote for the Drum Circle Compendium. I'm sending that too, and you'll get the list of the themes and a session plan. So thanks for signing up.
Simon says hi.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.